This video, we're going to look at board assessments. Now, this is not the board assessment of the head of school, but rather the board assessing its own work. And it's a bit of a tricky thing to do because this is all self-assessment of one sort or another. However, we've designed a system that we think creates an interplay of different perspectives in such a way that the board can really get a good feel for how they are doing and have a fair assessment of their progress. So let me share a screen with you, then I'll explain how it works. So here we are on the navigation bar at board assessment. We come in and we see similar tabs to what we have in other surveys, except that there is a separate tab here for trustee self-assessments. On the summary tab, we have some basic information, the number of responses that have come in from our board, the overall effectiveness. So this is your average of all the questions. We feel that focus on mission is really important. So we highlight that particular question, as well as a clear differentiation between strategic planning and thinking and operations, which are the domain of the head of school. Obviously, there's interplay in it and overlap, but boards should focus on long-term strategy. Next, we have the domain averages. So each of these areas can be looked at with their individual scores and the standard deviation. Clustering together more tightly means that there's more agreement. So in this case, they all look fairly good. The years of service, just a highlight whether we have people who've been here a long time, 10 years, 3 members, 10 years or more. There's 3 members with 3 to 5, and then there is 1 member with 6 to 10. So that gives you a feel for longevity on the board. Now, at the bottom are the individual responses from the board members as they evaluate the work of the board as a whole. So technically not self-assessment, but it's it's an individual's assessment of the group and a valid tool to use. When we click on that here, then we see the individual board members' ratings for every area. We can go down, look through what are they saying. There's some that are lower, some that are higher. The board stewardship committee can look at each one of these to see what is moving the score up or down. Is there any individual that just seems to have a different view from anyone else? And this one, everybody's pretty happy with the job they're doing. However, we want to go into a little bit more detail, so we go to the Details tab. This is going to look at each of these areas item by item. So if we expand them, we get the graphical representation. We can enlarge that like we do with other surveys, and you can work through. And here, the red flag tells us that there's some outliers. In other words, there are some differences of opinion. Anytime strongly disagree come up as 10% or more, we consider that an outlier. That's worth looking at. Why do some people disagree with what the majority says? So all of these questions are exceptionally important. Boards need to be addressing them all on a regular basis. We think this should be done every year. Then we can also do a comparison of the board stewardship committee. So this is the committee of the board whose purpose is to hold the board accountable to meeting their objectives, onboarding new board members, recommending people for a position on the board, coaching new trustees in their role, how to handle that, planning for professional development, annual retreat, helping to assess the work of the board. So we can then compare what do they say as a small group, typically about 3 people, about the work of the board, because that's their job, is to really focus on how the board is doing. At the same time, when we look at the overall questions here, if we look at the domains, if we go back here one of the domains is the board stewardship committee. So here you have a situation where the board as a whole also looks at the effectiveness of that committee. Are they doing a good job tracking attendance and holding us accountable for staying on focus with mission-oriented discussions and strategy as opposed to operations? So there's this interplay back and forth. It's all within this same group, but they are from different perspectives. And then the last perspective is each trustee taking the time to evaluate their own work. And so if we look at mission alignment, engagement, participation, there's a limited number of questions that we ask each trustee to consider in terms of their own involvement. But for example, my board meeting attendance this year was, okay, and this is the group view. Okay, so this is the group as a whole. In general, trustees are saying this about themselves. So we have mission alignment, we have engagement, and we have effectiveness in the role. So this is the team of individual board members. What are they saying about themselves individually? So this is self-assessment. And then finally, at the bottom, we have the individual board members reflecting on themselves. And so we can see each individual board member's self-assessment. So not corporately grouped, but individualized. So this gives you a tremendous ability to look at the board from a lot of different angles as a group, as individuals, as subgroups, looking up and looking down. It really provides a powerful tool for evaluating the work of the board over the course of the year. We think this should be done by every school every year because board leadership is incredibly important for the success of every Christian school.